Good afternoon. On behalf of Washington State University Everett, I'd like to welcome you to the 2024 State of the University Address. We're excited to have you all here today, and we're also excited to have President Kirk Schulz with us to share about Washington State University and all the good things happening at this time. I'd also like to give a special welcome to Eric Sheldon, who is the chair of our faculty senate. He's with us as well. So I'd like to say that there's many good things happening here at Washington State University Everett. A couple of things I want to mention. We are in the hub of business and industry, state of Washington. The other thing I want to mention is that we are a transfer institution, upper division only. And I just want to mention that because we have very robust relationships with the local community colleges, and about 95% of our students transfer in those community colleges. This past fall, I want to mention that we hosted Fusion Week, and we hosted that on behalf of the Seattle Clean Tech students. This is the second time that we've hosted the Fusion Week, and we're slated to host it again for the third time this fall, and something we're very proud of. We're also a career choice campus for Amazon, and so we're now seeing a trickle of students come through WSU Everett from Amazon. That's something that we're very proud of as well, and this is something that we want to be able to expand to the rest of Washington State University as a system. Our enrollment at Washington State University ticked up by double digits this past fall, so we're very proud of that. And the indicators for this upcoming fall are showing us that we have an opportunity to see an additional increase. So we're working very hard to ensure that we continue to see gains in terms of our student enrollments. Washington State University Everett was selected to join the Aspen Institute and their Transfer Success Initiative. And so we're working alongside Everett Community College to really focus in on transfer pathways and helping our students to be able to make that transition from the community college to the four-year institution. Along with that, one of the central points that we're working on within this particular partnership that Aspen is assisting us with is our degree partnership program. So that's a real central tenet of the work that we're doing there. We're also working with the Washington Student Achievement Council to pilot a new transfer tool. That's something that is going to be very valuable, not only for Washington State University Everett, but for the Washington State University system. This tool is one that will help transfer students to be able to identify their path is when they immediately enter the community college all the way through the baccalaureate degree. And so that's something that's going to be very important, not only for Washington State University, but for our community college system. And so we're beta testing that. We hope that it's going to be successful. And if it is, it's something that's really going to be important for our transfer students. So we're happy to be part of that. I also want to mention that this past year, we've distributed about $150,000 to our students, and primarily focusing on their scholarships, access, and then also persistence. These dollars come from the Puget Sound Taxpayer Authority account, and essentially these are dollars that were raised by the state through the light rail that's being built. And then we've been able to access those dollars from Snohomish County. Those dollars will be available to us for at least the next decade. We're hoping it'll be 12 to 13 years, but we know we'll at least get those dollars for the next decade. The counties that are able to access these dollars, of course, are along the light rail line, so that Pierce County, King County, and Snohomish County, and the dollars are directed to education. So these are dollars that we'll be counting on and that will eventually help us in our recruiting efforts as well. Um, I also want to mention our MACE program, our Math, Engineering, and Science Achievement Program. This past July 2023, we received dollars from the state that would allow us to develop this MACE program along with the University of Washington. Washington Mesa is out of the University of Washington. And so this program is to support students in both accessing STEM degree programs and then being successful as they move along their path toward graduation. And so we've been working diligently with Mesa, and we're hoping to have our director of the WSU Everett Mesa hired by the end of April. And then so that means that fall, we'll be able to start supporting our students, Mesa students, and then also recruiting Mesa students. So we're really excited about that as well. Plenty of good things going on in Everett. I could go on, but I think I'll stop there. But I just want to say that we're having an impact on Everett, the Holmes County and North Puget Sound region. And the type of work we're doing here is vitally important to individuals, to families, and to communities. And the type of impact that we're having will have will help them for generations. And so it's very important. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our president, Kirk Schulz.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And if I could get my first slide up. I don't know why I'm looking over my shoulder. I can look straight in the back of the room and see it. So let's see. Next slide, please. Right. So first, let me start off by thanking Paul and our team here at WSU Everett for hosting us this particular year. We've tried to move the state of the university address around through the system, and we've done it for the Tri-Cities. Really excited this year to be at Everett. So thanks to the team here for making that happen. Thanks also to Eric Sheldon, our faculty senate president, for our chair, for being here, participating, and moderating our question and answer time when I'm done with some prepared remarks. For those of you joining us online, thank you for doing that. And then I know there'll be several people that go and watch this on YouTube at a more convenient time. I'm always shocked how many people actually do watch this, and I know my mother is not clicking the like thing 1,000 times. So thank you for spending a little bit of time and hearing a little bit about what's happening at WSU. I think this is my 17th State of the University address as a president. And I think every single one of them been a little bit different in style and format. And so this year, what we want to do is just use slides, hit some highlights, talk about some headwinds, and then be able to spend the majority of our time on some Q&A, both ahead of time and from our audience that is here with us in Everett. So if I look really at some of our successes, we've done a lot of positive work on building our research infrastructure, our infrastructure as a whole around the WSU system. And the picture here shows some of our medical students doing ribbon cutting of a newly renovated building for the College of Medicine on our Spokane campus. That was one. If we look at our Pullman campus, we've got the indoor practice facility for Cougar Athletics. And I think you can see that thing from space. It is so large. It is a massive structure. We did a ceremonial groundbreaking this summer for a brand new state-of-the-art building for engineering. And we also did last summer a ceremonial, once again, groundbreaking for a brand new U.S. Department of Agriculture WSU Connors building that's really going to focus on bringing our researchers together from the university and USDA in a modern state-of-the-art facility. If we go to Vancouver, it turns out we're getting ready. We got people moving in as we speak, brand new life science building there. These are all things that over the last 12 months we're moving forward on that represent an important infrastructure investment in faculty, staff, and students across the system. The other thing that where we have been really successful this last year, it's with congressionally directed funding, or in old parlance, as much on my age now, earmark. And we received several things in this year's federal budget for instrumentation around research infrastructure. for programmatic funds, for campus safety. And these are all dollars coming in that make a difference at WSU. And hats off to our government relations team for the great job they did, taking projects, working with our delegation, making sure they're the kind of thing that we can put on the front page of the paper. We say we are proud of that. That's really important for us. Finally, on infrastructure, one of the things we like to talk about is certainly new buildings. And we get excited by new facilities. But it turns out that one of the things that we also get lots of state support for are major and minor works projects. And these are the ones that are $1 million, $2 million, maybe a new roof somewhere, a new window unit air conditioner, renovating a lab. They're smaller projects, but they're equally as impactful because it's not just off the brand new facility. It's what are we doing with the existing facility to make sure that they're meeting the needs of you all as faculty, staff, and students today. Next slide, please. Speaking of infrastructure and our research, we also continue to make great strides. You all continue to make great strides in this research and scholarly work that you're doing across our campuses. This last year, we measure research expenditures as an institution, and the NSF Bird Survey is where we compare ourselves to all these other institutions. We are right at about $370 million or so in research expenditures. It's a little bit above that, and it went up again by about 3% this last year. We currently rank 77 out of 637 institutions, and we continue to improve in that over the last couple of years. Now, those of you in here that do scholarly work or online, no one just hands you those dollars. You got to go compete for them. And so I think this just shows the excellence of our faculty, our staff and students engaged in scholarly work, going out, competing, winning, and continuing to do so each and every year. Additionally, U.S. Department of Agriculture, for the second year in a row, we're the second largest institution in terms of USDA funds. So folks are out there hustling, making a huge difference, and are doing great things. So one of the things that is shown on the slide here is some of our work, for example, in some areas like sustainable aviation fuels. That's really important to this campus. It's really important to the system. But the Tri-Cities, and right here in Snohomish County, we're working together with the county and the university system to put a world-class laboratory facility here to allow testing of these sustainable aviation fuels. We have the Institute for Northwest Energy Futures that was just stood up, in the process of being stood up, that was supported by the state, and it's going to have impacts across the system. If we look at in the fields of agriculture, we've got new wheat breeding that's going on. We got faculty working to ensure that as climate change comes to our region, what are we doing to make sure that our farmers and ranchers have the tools they need to continue to be globally competitive in what they're doing? If we look at the health sciences, we continue to see investment in things like the native health programs. If you look abroad, we've got our faculty in the Equine School for Global Health that are doing amazing work in Tanzania and Kenya around the spread and treatment of infectious diseases. You could stand up here for 20 minutes and go through each college and each campus, all the different work that we're doing. But suffice it to say that one of the things I think I'm very proud of is that we continue to excel. And when you look on a per faculty member basis, we are up there with Purdue and Texas A&M and much larger land-grant institutions. So much to be proud of here. And we want to keep making sure that we're bringing infrastructure. That includes people, that includes facilities, that includes grants, congressionally earmarked funding, everything possible to continue to grow our research efforts at Washington State University. Next slide, please. Well, one of the interesting things, I've been in public higher education for, I don't know, somewhere almost 35 years now. If I look over the last 3 to 4 years, one of the things that I have watched is just this big loss of confidence in higher education. If you go back even 5, 6 years ago, there wasn't a huge amount of debate on whether or not, except in certain quarters, on whether or not a college degree was worth it. Now today, you can't look at almost any major news media without seeing some article about, well, we don't need that today, or it's not helpful, or these types of things. And we watch this confidence in higher education continue to fall. And it's also very stark along political lines, but even on both sides of the aisle politically, it's still down from where it was even 5 years ago. We also are seeing a lot of things that were tax, if you will, on things like faculty governance, diversity, equity, and inclusion. You just free speech around and all these public universities kind of get convoluted into all of that. And it's an interesting time to be a leader in higher education. So that's one thing to say that that's an issue. I guess the question becomes, what is it that WSU is doing as part of our land grant mission is helping in this particular area? And this doesn't mean that we just bark and that's the way we're going to do it. We've actually doing some active things around the state, and I want to really be able to highlight a few of those around this particular topic. Next slide, please. So we want to make sure that Washington State University is seen as part of the solution. If I look at particularly at some of the work we do at diversity, equity, and inclusion, sure, it states now that you can't even have offices of that. We cannot have faculty colleagues, staff colleagues, student colleagues that are working in that particular space is prohibited and not providing the support they need. One of the things that we want to continue to do is making sure that we have robust programs to support our students. My goal as president is that WSU continues to look forward graduates that are workforce ready. And that means that they are ready to work in an increased, diverse, and multicultural environment. And to me, where are you going to learn about those sort of things? That needs to be part of our educational experience across all campuses at WSU. So this last year, we did some things. We put in place an equity impact tool that was developed by faculty and staff that helps guide us in decision-making. We have our Native Scholars program that is providing much-needed scholarship dollars to many of our Native students across the system. As a matter of fact, we're going to increase the size of that moving forward. We have La Bienvenida that seeks to make sure that we're doing some of our orientation work for families in the state that maybe not everybody English is the first language. And so what we want to do is make families feel comfortable that a Washington State University educational experience is geared toward them and their family and provides the support that it needs. So to me, as we look nationally, as we recruit faculty, staff, students, and leaders, I think we need to be proud of the work that we're doing in this space and put it up front and say, you want to come to an environment where we want to help you be successful. That's Washington State University. Next slide, please. I was going to say, I thought I'd just talk about that one. So here we go. So one of the other things we have to do is communicate the value of a college education, and not just a college education writ large, really two parts. One is, what's the value of getting a college degree? And then the second part is, what's the value of being part of the Washington State community and getting a Washington State University degree? So it turns out there's a group called that is focused on, it's really a society around for systems, public university system. And we're remembering that. And what that group is working to do is agglomerate data from all these university systems around what the value is of having a college degree. How does it help in social mobility? How does it help students to be successful that maybe come from first generation or first in their household to come to college type of situations? And you put all that together with all the university systems across the United States, it is a powerful set of data that we're contributing to. And then we get to use that data and information and as we kind of message out. We also are a participant in a new program that really looks to make sure that we're being transparent with college costs. There's a lot of these things that have been out there for a long time, but the idea is go somewhere and actually see what is the real cost. What do I have to have in my checking account to be able to go to Washington State University and have the resources I need to be successful as a student? And we made great progress institutionally in this space over the last several years. So right now, about a third of students that come to Washington State University that are Washington A students pay no tuition. What they do is they get tuition from some very generous state financial aid programs that have been put in place, and the state continues to invest in. So that's helped. The average debt has dropped for Washington State University students, and right now it's somewhere right around $24,000 is the average debt load undergraduate students finishing at Washington State University across the system. It's about the same amount it costs to buy a brand new Honda Civic. I looked yesterday to make sure I had that number right. But we've made progress to bring that down. And then something like close to 75% of our undergraduate students across the system receive some form of financial aid to help them go to school. And the reason I bring all this up is not just a college education, is it valuable philosophically, it's also, is it affordable? Is it accessible? And as a state's land-grant university, what are we doing to make sure that we have more Cougs that say that this is going to be possible? One thing I will say, too, around this particular space is we're looking at our enrollment, what those enrollment numbers may look like for this next year. In some space, for example, system-wide, we're up nearly 16% in confirmations year over year compared to where we were last year. And one of the things we did was we took one of the fees that you had to pay and we moved it so it could be in the student's financial aid. And guess what? As we look at those confirmations and we look at the income bracket, those particular students, there's several that said, yes, I'm going to be a Coug. And this made a difference between them being able to say, man, I'm not sure, and yes, I'm there. So we want to continue to make sure that we're thinking thoughtfully about what we can do to deliver a great quality education, but it's affordable to Washington residents. Next slide, please. So one of the other things as part of our One WSU initiative has really been focused around what are we doing in our communities? What are our campuses and extension centers and things doing in the local areas? You know, the old saying, all politics is local. It's the same with our campuses. People here clearly would care what happens in Pullman or Spokane, but if you really get down to it, they want to know in Everett and stuff, what's happening at WSU Everett. The WSU initiative is really working to empower that, to make sure that each campus has that ability to shape what they're doing, to meet the students, faculty, staff, research needs of those particular communities. So we're doing this in a lot of different ways. There have been a bunch of different grants that have come through Extension and others, doing things like broadband internet. We found out during COVID that we assumed everybody had all this access to terrific high-speed internet. We found out really soon that that was not the case. So we've got a grant to be able to do that in some of our more remote sites. Additionally, we also got a grant to update classroom spaces in some of our extension centers. So now we have modern, well-equipped, high-technology classroom spaces that were none before that can be used for community gatherings, used for classes and things like that. We're continuing to do picture there. I love this. This is Washington has been affected by wildfires, as you know, and our extension has this program where they bring in young people, and there are about 200 of them. And what they do is they learn about seeds and wildfires, and fire control, and all these things. And what they're seeing is you see that smile on the face. Those of us who went in science, is that joy of figuring things out, with seeing it, and the awe that comes with it. And that, I think, is a real key thing we're working on here. So we want to continue to make sure we're focusing in our communities and providing the tools needed so that WSU is seen as the difference maker in every county in the state of Washington. Next slide, please. One of the other things that I think we've seen that is that's got more of a magnifying glass on it right now is transparency, and especially around civil discourse. And I think we've seen with the war in the Middle East, challenges that college campuses have had around discourse. And back when I was a student, we would talk about how can we disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that comes back to how can we respect each other's viewpoints? How can we make sure that just because the two of us may disagree on something doesn't mean that we can't still be friends, or that we can't still have good conversations and learn from each other. And to me, public higher education, WSU is we are well equipped to be able to do this, but it's going to take continued effort on all of our parts. This is where Cougs helping Cougs, we use that a lot. We can hashtag it and all that. But I think that's an important core value of Washington State University that's important for us to remember. We also need to make sure that we work around extremism and hate And we just don't want those types of things to be color, if you will, the ability to have appropriate discourse. So I expect with a election coming up that, we're almost at the end of the spring semester. I suspect in fall, we're going to see a lot more challenges as a community with differing viewpoints and very passionate ideas. Want that. We want people to feel that they can exchange those ideas. We need to do it in a way that respects each other. And I think in higher education, I know at Washington State, this is something that's going to be important to us. Next slide, please. So one of the things we have to do is continue to adapt to this changing landscape. If we look this last year, we had some tremendous successes as an institution. We had 2 consecutive years of record fundraising. So we have alumni and friends and corporations investing in Washington State at a level that we have never seen before. And that's really positive. One of the things that we recognize is, we got hammered by enrollment coming out of COVID. I think, every campus did, and we're starting to see that positive recovery. But one of the things that I think we learned from that is we got to do things differently. We can't go back and do enrollment management in 2018, not today, the way we did in 2018. So one of the things that we started doing is when we go to an area and say, I'm showing up with my foundation colleagues and we're visiting with individuals, ask them to support Washington State, how can we make sure that's a more comprehensive type of set of events? So now we have these events where it'll be Alumni Association, corporate relations, foundation, and enrollment management. We'll go to one thing. We had an event in Hawaii. We try to recruit about 100 incoming new students each year from the state of Hawaii. There was about 30 students at this particular event. They're with their families. And guess what? They want to hear about the Alumni Association, what's happening in Cougar Athletics. They want to know about those opportunities for those students. So what we're doing now is we're trying to do that in different places outside the state of Washington, in Arizona, in Hawaii, Northern California, places where we have high concentrations of alumni or that they're very familiar with Washington State University. And those are the types of things that we do differently. On the flip side, though, and I think this is really important, we have lots of surveys and things like that, the coach survey, our employee engagement survey, that say, well, that external stuff is great. And internally, we may not necessarily feel that we like the direction where things are going. Our salaries are not keeping pace with where they need to. Concerned about continuous budget cuts. We're seeing fewer search-focused faculty than we saw 6-7 years ago. And we're concerned. And so I think it's easy to, as a president, that you want to point to things that are the successes. Hey, this is bigger than last year, better than last year. I also want to acknowledge we have a challenge ahead of us. And I think this last semester, through letters and stuff in the media, work in the faculty senate and others, I think people have brought forward and saying, hey, we don't know what the answers are, but we think we got to be working together to make sure that the WSU of the future continues to be a great place to work, to study, to spend a career. And that's what we have ahead of us. Next slide, please. So let me just, take a minute to look ahead just a bit of what do we have, kind of going on now. One of the key things that is we're doing these budget presentations. It's like 51 Zoom meetings. If you can just conceive of a whole day of 30-minute Zoom meetings back to back to back from all these different units. And what we've asked people to do is, model the 1%, 3%, 5% reduction would be. What's the impact that going to be? How would you do it? What's your strategy? Those kind of things. Because the across the board type of changing our budgets, people have said, I'm out enough. We need to start making some decisions. What stuff's important to us and what's not important to us? What do we want to keep doing and do more investment in? For some areas that maybe we need to say, let's do a little less investment in. So you can't just do that in a month. You can't do that in 2 months. So one of the things that we're going to start now working with faculty, staff, and students is really prep ourselves for the fall semester to do a complete review of both the administrative structure of the university, and that's across the system, as well as program review. Not done this in decades at WSU. And you can look out there and you say, oh, Kirk, I've got a colleague at this institution, they did that, and this was terrible and all that. Well, I think if we take our time together and say, what are the outcomes? What are the desired outcomes? What's the process look like? What are the important things for us to be considering? And you spend the time on that, then you don't go through and have a bunch of data and say, well, the administration just made some arbitrary decision. Do it together. What winds up happening is we can figure out ways to structure things differently, be more effective in certain areas, be more investment in certain areas and maybe less in others, but do it collaboratively in a transparent way. And this is the most important thing. Take our time. Don't try and do it in 2 months. Don't try and do it in 3 months. This is the kind of thing that we want to use all of next academic year to work through in a very open way. So that is part of what I think we can see that is around the corner. Finally, higher ed is seeing all kinds of challenges. I think those of us kind of that are out there and go to conferences, talk to people at other institutions, some of the stuff that we're dealing with generally, it's a little different in each place, but on the other hand, there's a lot of similarities. I just want to restate that the way to solve those things is by working together. We can disagree on certain aspects of it. That's fine. But to me, we roll up our sleeves. We say as a community of Cougs, we're going to work together on these things. That's how we're going to do it. And I want to just keep encouraging people. It's okay for us to disagree, but that's the way I think we need to do things moving forward. Next slide, please. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share some successes, a little bit of the future. Also want to spend some time with Eric doing some Q&A. But I love this picture because at the end of the day, we can talk about budgets, we can talk about this, and we can talk about that. This is what we're here for, is to educate our students at the undergraduate and graduate level, and for people to invest time at our university along their career path. And that can be professional programs, it could be undergraduate programs, it doesn't matter. But this is what we want to continue to do. Showed the rocket earlier from the WSU Everett team. Those are the kinds of things where I have to remind myself, at the end of the day, when I'm looking at budget spreadsheets, it's our students and making sure that they are successful. They leave WSU and they go on and do great things. They go back and say, it was a faculty member I had. It was a project I was involved in. It was this opportunity I had that I never thought I would get part of my Coug experience. That is not just Pullman or Spokane or whatever. That's all of our campuses, the whole system. That's what we got to keep our eye on. That's what we're going to continue to do. So thank you and go Cougs. Eric and Walt, you want to come up here? I think we're going to do some Q&A now. Done. They can't break you and start. Great. Good night.
Sure. Thanks. Hi, everyone. So I'm Eric Schulz, Chair of Faculty Senate. Just a quick announcement that I will holding a faculty meeting with the Everett campus at 4:30 later today. So if you can make that, would be great. Kirk, I want to start by thanking for your support of shared governance. I have over the last year numerous occasions written you emails and gotten that bill that says this is not drop being hours to do again. Basically gets sent right back to me, supportive of increasing strength of communications between faculty and yourself, and also more recently, because I think you've been absolutely consistent in the message that despite having a lot of concern, criticism, being levied at WSU and yourself, that we should be working together to solve problems. So I've been very impressed. I want to all that. I'm going to abuse my privilege by asking you the first. Oh, sorry. I'm going to abuse my privilege position by asking you this question. You've touched on a number of things that Washington State University is doing to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, access to students of different groups, and those are all impressive efforts and achievements. And I know that you're continuing work of Elsa Floyd at this area. That's much appreciated. The recent CUM survey, I think, highlighted that faculty of color, WSU University are still deeply concerned, will feel supported. And these are the mentors and role models that will be needed to support students that we recruit. Can you address what Washington State University needs to do address that?
Thank you. I just to make sure everybody heard the question while online, it's really, what are we doing to support our faculty of color? And that has come from several surveys. We don't need another survey on this one to just say that particular faculty group has not felt supported at WSU the way that some of our other faculty have felt supported. This has been an issue for my entire tenure at Washington State University. And I think there's a short term, we need to just continue to be meeting and asking what types of things can we be doing to help. And we did a lot of that my first few years, and I think we've done a little less of that in the last year or two. And so I take the blame for that. It doesn't need to be a group always reaching out. It can sometimes be me saying, hey, before you guys reach out, let's sit down and talk this. So I think that's one thing is we got to keep those communications open and say, can we do? And before, when we met, there were sometimes some very concrete, items that we would list off and say, hey, to me, if you say, well, Kirk, that's great. What's the longer term sort of solution? And part of that is that particularly our Black faculty is just a small, tiny percentage of our overall faculty at WSU. And when Elizabeth Chilton came, the things that she started was the cluster hiring program and the competition internally, us going out. And what's happened is that program has helped us to continue to diversify with faculty of color, WSU across the system, so that we start growing that community. So it's not the same, X number of people in a room, but they start seeing new colleagues come in. And I think that helps us grow our community. And so I think, particularly with our Black faculty, that is a real key factor is you got to recruit and retain. Because we've had a lot of folks come in, have a couple of years, we're like, oh man, this is great. And then they get another opportunity to leave and you go, boy, when one person leaves, that's a big percentage dip. And we just got to grow that cadre moving forward. We did put a pause on the cluster hiring program for 1 year, just because we're trying to be careful on where our budget lies. But that has been tremendously successful. I get a lot of to Lisa Guerrero and Elizabeth for bringing that to WSU. And so I think it's two things, continued communications, and secondly, we just got to grow that component of our faculty. Paul, do you have anything you might want to add?
Well, what I would add is that it's always going to be difficult when you have a small cohort of faculty there. And as you mentioned, can be competitive for some of these faculty members. But I think we can continue to just build community. One of the things that I've always tried to mention is that somehow we leverage, for instance, for African-American faculty, we leverage the fact that we have very robust communities of color on the west side of the state, and just being able to invite them over to the west side to take part in cultural events and activities. This weekend, there's a NAACP gala, those types of things that, help to build community for them, I think could be beneficial. And some of the things that you mentioned, I think there have been some really robust events and kind of community and cultural activities that are really engaging our communities of color in Pullman, and I think we just have to build upon those.
Yeah. Thank you both. I've got a question from Ryan Smith, who's a student at WSU Pullman. He says, how are enrollment trends looking, and how will the athletic landscape hold enrollment concerns coming up?
So that was a significant question when the Pac-12 stuff all started taking place. Is it's sort of interesting. I think all of us faculty appreciated the fact that, we had a cohort with Stanford and Cal Berkeley and some of these really world-class research institutions, and sort of saw some of those things spraying. And then I think there was a lot of concern about, well, maybe students won't come to WSU Pullman because we're not playing in the Pac-12 conference. So, and can promise lots of stuff during that as a president, but you better be careful until you sort of see where data are. So right now, when I was talking to our enrollment management people this last week, we are up across the board. We are up in first-year students commits, and that number is 15, 16% year over year. So last year was the largest year we had since pre-pandemic. We're up quite a bit this next year. Transfer students are up quite a bit as well. And for each year at this time, we saw that drop. And you all know this in the Everett campus is because the number of students going to community colleges way down, and that's starting to rebound now. We're starting to see that. So right now, our enrollment data looks really robust. And one of the things we've learned, though, and we've got a bunch of folks here across the system that continue to work in this space, is we don't tend to attract students based on cool technology or some website. If you look, our students that come visit campus, they visit with you all as faculty, and they do a campus tour, and they have that live in-person thing, really, really critical to our success. And we found that, I think that's one of the lessons we learned from COVID, is you did the best you could, but when we were missing that touch, really hurt our enrollment. Interestingly, if we compared the data, and not just for Pullman, if you say how many students took 2016, 2017 took a campus tour in Pullman. Today, last year, that number is double what it was at that time. You have that many more people kind of coming through and looking. So I just want to continue to emphasize that certainly athletics can play a role in enrollment, but what we've tried to say is, guess what? We still have football games, still have Greek light, still got great faculty here. Nobody asks on a NSF grant what athletic conference you're in. We still have a lot of those pieces, and I think that message is getting out. So now, until we get to the 10th day of classes in the fall, you can be up a zillion %. It's how many people matriculate and actually come through. But if we look back at historic data, it looks really robust coming in for the fall, and it's important, all of us across the system, regardless of what campus we're on, enrollment and retention is all part of what we do. And it's interesting. I've had a couple of times I'll be in Pullman. I was at Spokane the other day, and somebody was looking lost. All of us have seen this. They're kind of walking around with maybe a prospective student. Mom and dad are there. The student doesn't want to talk to anybody, but you can tell they just don't know quite where to go. It's interesting the number of times that I've watched you all do this is somebody walks up to us and says, "Can I help?" And they'll talk to you later and say, "Oh, I've been to other places. Nobody stopped and said anything." So you could say, well, is that a big deal? Yes, it is. It makes a difference to families. So anyway, fingers crossed. Data right now looks really positive, but we got to wait and see where we are in August. And so far, I'm really optimistic about where we're going to be this fall.
Thank you for sharing the tentative good news. I want to say, Joe, the VP for Enrollment Management, and Andrew, who are Director of Admissions, recently sent faculty Senate a document that describes all that they've been doing since both enrollment. That's on the faculty Senate website. It's we're doing. Does anybody from the audience want to ask a question?
I just want to say I'm shocked that Pat would ask a question. So
I've been working on it. Pat McClain, part of the advisory council, and my colleague Brother Evans here at WSU. It's our vision with the introduction of interdivision students who come here. A vision 5 years, 10 years doesn't make any difference. But clearly, I've seen it not only here, I've seen it on other campuses where the campus struggles as an upper division entity But boy, when you bring in those freshmen and sophomores, things really start to rock and roll. So my question would be, is there not even a strategy? Is there a vision? Is there a way, path forward that we can all, as a community as well as the university, talk to and push forward? Thank you. And thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Great question. Let me, a couple things. If we go back to pre-pandemic, the model around the country that a lot of places looked at is what we were doing in Everett was the ideal thing. Don't do the lower division courses, be co-located, quality community college partner. That is the way to go. I think we saw after the pandemic that maybe that model wasn't such a great one after all. I think it causes us to ask ourselves, is that what we need on all of campuses? A case in point in Vancouver and Tri-City now, they crossed over about a year or two ago, and actually more first-year students coming in than transfer students for the first time in their history. So there's some data that suggests that. I mentioned in my remarks about the program review piece. And when you hear program review, sometimes people in their mind go, oh, that just means we're going to cut some stuff. To me, this is the comprehensive question you ask to say, for Everett to hit 1,000 students, or pick your favorite number, what are we going to need to do there and make sure that we can do that? And that may be part of what we decide. There has to be some investment here to be able to do that. So I don't think it's 10 years out. I think next academic year, there's going to be a really robust discussion around that. And we want this campus to be successful, grow enrollment in Snohomish County, and the city of Everett wants to see this place be successful and grow and help the business community. So I think the discussion is going to happen sooner rather than later. I think next academic year, this is the kind of stuff we want to spend some time on as a community.
Thank you. I'll ask another question. This may be for both of you. What would it take for WSU Everett to transition from a transfer campus, primarily transfer campus, to with its full potential as a four-year institution?
Well, it would take a lot of work internally, primarily with the College of Arts and Sciences, to set up the lower division curriculum. It isn't. It wouldn't be a task that would be too tough to do because, as Kirk mentioned, both Vancouver and Tri-Cities have done that recent past, and I'm sure there's a lot of information we can glean from them and their experience. I think one of the things that we're really fortunate to have is a system, and I think there's ways that we could leverage the system to be able to deliver that type of coursework. Of course, there's going to be some expense involved in that. I think the key thing about the lower division is that you have the ability to bring in more students, and in fact, it could help to bolster our upper division, of course, and that's one of the reasons to really do it. It definitely would take some work. I think we have the infrastructure with our system to be able to do something like that. It takes work, though.
So let me start a little indirectly. So my first job and my PhD was as a track faculty member of the University of North Dakota in chemical engineering. We had 5 faculty. And I'd come from a department that was a lot larger for my PhD, but we knew every student's name. We knew exactly what they wanted to do in their careers. We had this really wonderful relationship between the faculty and the students. Not that we don't have that across the system, but that's unique about this campus. You all know every single student in your class. You know their names, you know their background, you know what they want to do in life, how they got there. And so the reason I mention that is when we just say, well, are we going to add freshmen and sophomores? To me, it's how do you keep what makes this campus special? Make sure that you do that in those first 2 years. that means faculty and some other things, additional faculty and other resources. But to me, let's keep the core of what makes this place special and make sure that we don't do it just to add people, but we do it to make sure that 20 years from now, people say, the reason I'm doing what I wanted to do, that my dream job, is because of the education I got and the faculty mentoring and support I got at WSU Everett. So to me, you keep that principle intact and then say, what is it going to take to keep that there? And that's really, for this campus to mount out what that would be, and then for us to decide together, is that something we can do? So I think I got the wave here that we're about out of time. So is that correct? Yep. Okay. So back there. So maybe Eric, I'll let you make each of us do a quick closing statement, and you get to say something, whether you want to or not.
Well, I would just reiterate that a pleasure working with you for the last year, and forward to being a past chair, working with you, and I appreciate all of the efforts that made to support shared governance for Washington State University.
It's just been a pleasure to host the State of the University. Thank you both, Eric and Kirk.
Well, thank you all for being out here. Those watching online, thank you for your time today. If I was boring at any point, hopefully you got some email done. And for those of you watching on YouTube, again, thank you for your interest in Washington State University. I really do believe we've got challenges, but we've got the right people in the right places to work together, and we can overcome anything because we're Cougs. Anyway, thank you for Cougs.